My spouse and I had been acquainted since our high school days. While I was raised in a disadvantaged household, my husband came from a privileged background. Aiden, not only the object of envy among the girls at our school, but also by a large portion of the town's female population, always impressed with his impeccable fashion sense, audacious actions, intelligence, and physical prowess. Despite being surrounded by numerous potential suitors, surprisingly, one day Aiden chose to invite me on a date, much to the envy of others. I felt a mixture of both delight and apprehension, as my primary focus at the time was my rigorous academic pursuit and preparation for admission to our local medical university, with a specific interest in the study of Chinese alternative medicine. Consequently, I refrained from engaging in serious relationships until after graduating from school. I was convinced that Aiden viewed me as mere amusement, a fresh conquest. Nonetheless, it's worth noting that I possessed my fair share of physical beauty, a result of favorable genetics. Both my mother and grandmother were charismatic, vibrant women, and it appeared I had inherited their captivating qualities. Aiden treated me with utmost sensitivity, never displaying any rudeness or pestering behavior. He even gifted me flowers, undeterred by the fact that I hailed from a modest background. My mom was a solo act, raising me on nothing but a teacher's wage. We squeezed into a tiny studio apartment, scrimping just to scrape by. Aiden once confided in me that he was drawn to my solemn approach to life, my self-respect, and my firm belief in traditional values. Post-graduation, I achieved my ambition and started my freshman year at the local university, while Aiden dove into the world of international affairs. Despite expectations, our bond didn't crumble. Yet it didn't burn with the fervor typical of movie romances either. Perhaps the reason was my own disposition. I was inherently composed, a true embodiment of the placid northern temperament, preferring logic over emotions. Thus, 2 years drifted by. Meanwhile, Aiden's father ascended to the role of deputy leader in our town's government. His mother was building a thriving enterprise, a network of stores, beauty salons, and renowned market representation across the city. Her financial success in these ventures, and perhaps others I was unaware of, seemed to have no impact on the financial situation my mother and I found ourselves in. I took up tutoring in my spare time, striving to contribute to our financial well-being. My mother, too, toiled tirelessly to make ends meet. Aiden, in a gesture of kindness, offered to help me financially, but I declined. I wished to remain independent and not owe him anything. My parents had hoped to find a suitable bride for Aiden within their social circle, but he had fallen in love with me. When his parents forbade him from seeing me, he was driven to the point of taking pills in desperation. But thankfully, he survived. After that incident, his parents no longer objected to our relationship, though his mother openly displayed her animosity towards me. Then one day, Aiden took me by surprise and proposed. We had been together for a long time, and he believed it was time to take our relationship to the next level. He saw in me a deserving wife and an excellent mother. He was also captivated by the fact that I did not exploit him for money, like his previous girlfriends, whom he described as having attractive exteriors but flawed cores. Naturally, his mother vehemently opposed our union, causing her son to spiral into hysterics as she declared that I would ruin his future. Once, she even attempted to bribe me into abandoning Aiden. Strangely enough, his father, Matteo, was not opposed to our union. He believed that with me by Aiden's side, he would have both unwavering support and genuine love. Despite the strained relations with Aiden's relatives, I made the decision to marry him. It wasn't a passionate, all-consuming love like the ones I had imagined while watching those romantic movies in my youth. Instead, it was a mixture of respect and a sense of security. However, I must confess that one of the reasons I wanted to go through with the wedding was to improve our financial situation and provide my mother with a peaceful and comfortable life in her golden years, free from the burden of debt. Aiden wasn't materialistic. He understood the dire circumstances my mother and I were in. Finally, we fixed the date for our eagerly awaited wedding. It's no secret that the wedding of a high-ranking official's son attracted quite the media attention. Even though our city is a tight-knit community, many journalists couldn't resist poking fun at the groom. Yours truly. Thankfully, I was spared any insults, but my serendipitous entrance into a privileged life didn't escape scrutiny and became a talking point at every corner. The overwhelming public attention had me on the verge of a meltdown. I wanted to throw everything away and escape from it all. But thanks to Aiden and his father, who willingly shouldered the brunt of the information bombardment, I found solace. They praised and shielded me from the spotlight. Once the wedding was over, our initial plan was to relocate to the capital. However, Aiden's parents insisted we live in close proximity to them. As a wedding gift, they offered us a smaller house near their own home. It wasn't quite what we had in mind. Aiden and I had envisioned starting an independent life together. He wanted to transfer to MGIMO in the capital and establish his own business, while I yearned to distance myself from his mother, someone who always sought to diminish and insult me. Alas, Aiden's parents denied us the opportunity to fulfill our aspirations. My father-in-law, Matteo, continued to show me unwavering support. He likened me to his first love, also named Sophia. After the wedding, he respectfully kept his distance and treated our family with politeness and courtesy. He even took to calling me Sophia, which absolutely incensed my mother-in-law, though she hid her fury in the presence of my husband, managing only a tense smile while feigning kindness. As soon as we were alone, she didn't hesitate to hurl the harshest insults at me, denouncing my entire lineage. My mom felt terrible about it. She was deeply troubled by the intense aversion my mother-in-law harbored, but what could be done? Indeed, we were merely modest, humble folks, yet we never harbored malice in our hearts. Eventually, fed up with the perpetual hostility, I persuaded Aiden to approach his parents with a proposal to fund our relocation and fresh start in the metropolis. Aiden was keen on escaping his family's clutches, yet his taste for the finer things in life, never having to want for anything, made him hesitant to leave without financial security. For some reason, Aiden felt it would be smoother to broach this with his mother, but predictably, he was met with an outright denial. His mother sternly declared she would disown him if he dared depart. Following this, Aiden returned, subdued, and began to argue that perhaps it was best we remain where we were. That evening marked the first occasion I found myself truly furious with my husband, our inaugural argument. I expressed to Aiden that if he was unable to address issues with his parents effectively, then I would step in. Consequently, the following day, I made my way to my father-in-law, Matteo, confronting him directly at his office amidst a bustling workday. What choice did I have? I was fighting for my joy, for the joy of his lineage. I knew that visiting Matteo at his residence would inevitably lead to a clash with my hysterical mother-in-law, who would likely take another opportunity to belittle and distress me, ensuring a disastrous outcome. Matteo appeared quite taken aback by my sudden appearance, yet he welcomed it. He promptly instructed his secretary to postpone a few appointments and negotiations, affirming that he could always spare a moment for me. He then offered me tea and sweets, settling in to give me his undivided attention. It must have been evident from my demeanor that I was at my wit's end. Without hesitation, I commenced the discussion, laying everything out to my father-in-law, underscoring how his wife's continual berating and animosity had worn me thin. I made it clear that Aiden, too, had been itching to escape the overly protective clutches of the family home. Throughout my outpouring, Matteo was all ears. He did not once interrupt me, instead nodding in understanding and siding with my perspectives. As our discussion wound down, I mentioned my eagerness to leave here with my husband at the earliest opportunity. My father-in-law, upon hearing those words, cast me a curious glance and smirked. "Are you truly ready for anything?" he inquired. I paused for a brief moment, but it seemed I was so weary of the situation that I gave a resolute nod. "Yes, anything. I have no alternatives," I implore you to assist me." At that instant, Matteo rose from his seat, approached the door, and secured it with a key. He then casually poured himself a drink and declared, "Well, if you are prepared to embrace anything, then become my mistress. Begin your duties this very moment. It's quite clear that you don't have any real affection for Aiden. You're only with him for his riches. Frankly, I have no sorrows for him. He's not genuinely my son, and his love for me is equally tied to money. It's all about the cash flow, darling. It's a never-ending loop." And regrettably, he spoke the truth. I did have feelings for Aiden, but my attachment leaned more towards a life of comfort. I recalled how he viewed our relationship as an escape from the chains of poverty. Despite my profound reluctance, I conceded to Matteo's suggestion and succumbed to him right on his desk. This was a sacrifice I made for my family's well-being and our autonomy, yet I surprisingly found myself not entirely repelled by the intimacy. In fact, I somewhat enjoyed it. Matteo proved to be skilled and considerate, and astonishingly, it was there upon that table I experienced an unparalleled ecstasy for the first time. My father-in-law came away pleased. He urged me to keep this our secret and mentioned that the following day we could begin planning our relocation. He assured me of his visits a few times each month. Aiden remained oblivious, and I fervently wished he would remain forever unaware of the steep price I had paid for our liberty. Eventually, we relocated to the capital where Aiden pursued his academic and entrepreneurial ventures, while I continued discreet rendezvous with Matteo, my father-in-law. However, such a secret could only be kept for so long. My mother-in-law grew suspicious, pieced together her husband's frequent visits, and opted to trail him. She engaged a detective who exposed our affair. After enduring much degradation from her, I must admit there was a twisted satisfaction in asserting my dominance over her when she unleashed a spectacle in our hotel's foyer. Amid her outburst, I could only watch with a composed demeanor and a hint of a smirk. Aiden and I went our separate ways on the very same day, and just a week later, we finalized our divorce. It seemed that Aiden's mother played a significant role in this. Matteo also divorced his wife at a later time, and their separation was quite public. She took him to court, seeking a substantial portion of their assets, but their father-in-law managed to hold onto his position. Naturally, my ex-father-in-law attempted to establish a connection with me after the divorce, but I refused to engage with him any further. There was no need for such interactions now. I was simply relieved to finally be free from that family, and proud that I had managed to save a substantial amount of money in my bank account. I returned to the capital and brought my mother to live with me. However, I soon began to experience health issues, and my concerns were confirmed when a pregnancy test indicated 2 positive lines. At this stage in my life, I was finally free to follow my own path without feelings of guilt, except towards Aiden for my deceit. In my defense, I was simply trying to preserve our family's unity by any means necessary. Yet, I harbored no illusions about the justness of my actions and held on to the hope that Aiden might, one day, come to grips with what happened and perhaps even forgive me. More pressing, though, was the secret growing inside me. It was either his sibling or his child. After much soul-searching and a lengthy discussion with my mother, we made the decision to welcome the baby into the world. As time marched on, my son Elijah blossomed into a lively and exceptional 3-year-old who had an uncanny ability to handle money and would often declare his grand plans to purchase the largest mansion for me when he matured. On that memorable day, Elijah and I sauntered into a renowned coffee shop in Moscow, known for its delectable croissants which Elijah adored. We settled into our usual cozy corner with our staple order of cappuccinos and sweet treats. Just as Elijah began to chatter, a voice that tugged at my memories filled the air. "Sophia, Sophia, I'm back." My ability to speak momentarily abandoned me as I stood face to face with Matteo, my ex-father-in-law. What on earth brought him to the capital? I wondered silently. All the while, Matteo's eyes were fixed on Elijah, his spitting image. Seeing Matteo's bewildered expression and his incoherent muttering, I could tell that he grasped the whole situation. It emerged that roughly a year had slipped by since Matteo earned his promotion and relocated to the capital city. In the wake of their divorce, his ex-wife took her portion of the assets, along with their stepson Aiden, and they went abroad to start a new life. Matteo never remarried, though he often thought of me. That fateful day, he stumbled into this cafe, having confused the nearby entrance with the restaurants where he had an appointment, and there we were, me and my son. His unspoken question hung in the air, to which I merely nodded and burst into tears. From that moment on, we were inseparable, eventually living together and tying the knot. To settle any lingering doubt, Matteo took a DNA test, which confirmed his fatherhood unequivocally. He now utterly adores Elijah. I landed a job as a marketer in the same company where my mother, having retrained as an accountant, also works. Elijah has grown and started school, and everything has fallen into place in our lives. I ask not for judgment, but for compassion. Life is unpredictable, and who knows what the future holds. As for now, I live for today. Happiness fills my heart as my loved ones are healthy, and we have the means to get by. After navigating many obstacles, we have finally found our joy.